Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. I have had the craziest 2 months ever, and that craziness is still going. I actually just moved out of home with my boyfriend, so I'm in our new place in the living room. I don't know how I feel about the setup right now, but this is what we're going with, okay? In addition to that, we just got off a cruise. We actually got home from the cruise and moved in the same day, which was like a week ago today, pretty much, that we moved in. And tomorrow morning at 6 AM, we leave to go to Europe. So literally the craziest couple weeks. It's November 17th, but I'm sitting down to film my October and November wrap up today because, like I said, I go to Europe tomorrow and I'll be there until December. So I'm not gonna have time or like the will to want to sit down and film this whole video when I'm in Europe. So I figured I'd sit down now, film the whole video up until the 17th of November, and then before I upload it, when November actually ends, I'm gonna film the last half in Europe. So the second half of this video later on will be filmed from a hotel in Europe somewhere. Okay, so the first book I read in October, I literally started on the 23rd of October. And that was the first book for the entire month. I was in the craziest reading slump. Like, I just had no motivation to want to pick anything up. Everything sounded unappealing. There was nothing that made me excited to read. And then at some point, see, I don't even remember following this author, but I followed this author on Instagram, Rachel Lee, and I just saw one of her reels about like a scene in the book, and I was like, you know, why not give it a go? Why not just pick it up and try and read it? So I got out my Kindle and I started Savage Games by Rachel Lee, which is the first book in the Bastards of Boulder Cove series, trilogy. This book, it got me out of the reading slump. It did it. I would give it like 4.5 stars probably. I read it in one night. I read it in a single sitting. I have not done that in like a year since I first started reading, and I read it in one single sitting. It was so good, I could not put it down. So this book is about Scarlett, who basically gets sent to like an academy, and it's kind of like a secret society, and she gets sent to the like high school of the secret society, if that makes sense. So she reluctantly has to go to this new school, which is kind of like run by these 3 guys called the Lawless, and it's Crew, Neo, and Jagger, I believe. Yes, Crew, Neo, and Jagger. And basically Scarlett grew up with these 3 guys, and they were super close, along with one of their other friends, and something happened. They all kind of fell out. The 3 guys obviously are still friends, but they stopped talking to her, and they've actually been like ruining her life, pretty much her entire life. So she ends up having to go to this school with them, and it's like it's a bully romance, kind of second chancey, childhood friends to enemies to lovers, a bit of a reverse harem. I don't know, I think reverse harems have to be 4 guys or more. I don't know if that's true, but this one's like, I think it's 3 guys, I don't know. You'll understand when you read it. So it is a bully romance. It's quite dark. It's like prep school vibes, like boarding school. Boarding school, childhood friends to enemies to lovers, and bully romance. Literally my 3 favorite things in the entire world. And reverse harems. That's literally 4 of my favorite book tropes. There's a huge mystery happening at the same time. It's incredible, and I highly recommend it. Right after I finished it, same night, I started the second book in the series, which is called Vicious Lies. Again, so good. I didn't like this one quite as much as the first one. I gave it like 3.5 stars, but it was still incredible. I read it in like 2 nights, I think. It's like a trilogy, so it's the same people, it just continues on. I really recommend this series. The 3rd book, I think it's coming out really soon, or maybe it just came out. I think it hasn't come out yet. I think it's coming out in a couple weeks though. The next book I picked up was actually also a series, and I have wanted to read an Amo Jones book for so long. I've heard so many mixed reviews, but she was one of the authors that like I used to see a lot on BookTok and was always like, oh, I want to read that. But for some reason, I just never did. I'll tell you what did it. I'll tell you what did it. So I finished that last book and was like, ugh. Okay, now I need to stay out of this reading slump, find something else. What am I meant to do? And then I'm sure if you're on BookTok, you've seen this video. You've for sure seen this video. I saw the original, yeah, the original came up on my For You page. This video, I feel like you guys know it. If you haven't seen it, whatever. But that video came up on my For You page and I was like, oh. So I went straight to the comments and one of the comments was like, this reminds me of In Chaos Rise, what is it called? In Peace Lies Havoc by Anno Jones. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a sign. So I straight away went on my Kindle once again and was like, oh, read now. I finished it in one sitting. I love this. It is super dark. Okay, it's quite dark. There's a lot of like dark themes. So this is the first book in the Midnight Mayhem series, which is interconnected standalones. So they're each about a different couple. And this is the first book and it is about Dove and King. Basically, Dove's parents both died when she was a lot younger and she doesn't really remember a lot from before they died. She kind of just forgot everything. And she's now like older, whatever. She's a stripper. She's like, well, she's working in a strip club. And she ends up getting kidnapped and taken to the circus. Like to this, it's not a circus, whatever, but like this circus. And there's like a whole lot of like family culty society type stuff going on, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the right way to explain it. It's so hard. Like both of these series that I read this month, there's so much like mystery involved in the plot that I can't really say too much without literally spoiling everything. I've read the first 3 books in this series now and all of them had huge crazy plot twists that were incredible. Hi guys, okay, so basically I explained the next couple books so badly and I realized that later and I did refilm explanations of them when I was in Europe. So for now we're just gonna skip the rest of the Midnight Mayhem series and move on to the next book I read, but just know that after reading the first book in the series, I read the second and third, and then I read the 4th book later on in the month. But for now we're skipping those because the explanations I filmed here were so bad and told you nothing. I don't know what I was on, but we'll come back to them. Okay, enjoy. I highly recommend this series. I haven't read the 4th book yet, but I definitely plan to really soon. And then I read one final book so far in November, Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. If you haven't heard of this book, then you've literally been living under a rock because every person under the sun has read it. It is all over TikTok, all over bookstagram. It's everywhere. If you haven't heard of this book, I'm pleased to introduce it to you, but I will be extremely shocked. This book, it's clearly, as you can see, an ice hockey player and a figure skater, and it's college hockey romance. So if you liked the off-campus series or any of that, you're gonna love this. Nathan Hawkins, the guy, every time he opened his mouth, I was literally like giggling. It's kind of reverse Grumpy Sunshine, which I actually haven't really read a lot of, but I really enjoyed it. I'll give you a brief explanation, but basically she is a figure skater dreaming to go to the Olympics, training to go to the Olympics. He is an ice hockey player. He's the captain of the hockey team at their college, and something ends up happening to one of their like rinks, is that what it's called? Ice rinks. And so both the hockey team and the figure skaters have to train on the one rink, so they end up crossing paths a lot and stuff happens. You know how it is, it's like forced proximity because of that. It's like guy falls first, he's like chasing her and she's like running away from him. It was so different than a lot of books with the same like setting and story, if that makes sense. Like books like The Deal and the Off Campus series and other like hockey romances, even though it's a similar like vibe of the book and aesthetic of the book, and like I said, if you liked them you'd like this, like even though that's all similar, it was so different. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this is an incredible book, and I know there is more books in the series coming out, which I'm so excited to read. That is all the books I've read so far. I will finish this video in Europe. Hi guys, so I'm in France now. I don't know if you can see the snow behind me. I did start to film this on my camera but it's dead somehow. Like I said, I'm gonna finish this video here. I honestly didn't really read much else, but that's okay because I also figured, thinking back, I really didn't explain the books in the Midnight Mayhem series very well, so I'm gonna like explain them a little bit better so that hopefully you guys can get a better idea of what they're about and whether or not you would like them. This is really weird filming on my phone, like I feel like I keep... Okay, nothing is really working right now, but that's completely fine. So the first book in the series is about King and Dove, and I loved this book when I read it. Now that I've read the rest of the series, it's like one of my least favorite of the whole series, but at the time I loved it. It's like a kidnapping trope, I suppose, like enemies to lovers kind of, with like a kidnapping trope, a lot of trauma. Like I said, all of these books are really dark, which I think Emma Jones is kind of known for, so if that's not for you, obviously don't read it. But that's the first book. The second book is Saskia and Keenan. I don't know, but it's their book and I also really loved this one. It's kind of, I don't really know what the trope is because it's not like enemies to lovers. It's definitely boy falls first, which I loved, and he's like kind of like pining after her and like trying to get her throughout the whole book, which I loved so much. Was not my favorite of the series, is probably my least favorite of the series. I still really enjoyed it at the time while reading it, but definitely not my fave. The third book, loved it, probably tied for my favorite with the last book, but this is a throuple and it is Kieran, Eli and Lilith. I don't know why her name skipped my memory. I am obsessed with all three of them and I loved this book so much, and the story and the ending, also the plot twists in all of this series, like in every single book, are insane. Like I said, it's like a throuple, kind of rivals to lovers for all of them. They're kind of like all rivals. So good, so good. And then the last book, which is the one I just finished, and that is like, it's brothers, best friend, childhood friends to lovers. So good, the brothers best friend. I love it. It is Keaton and Cartier, whatever, but it is their story and I loved it so much. It really ties into the previous book. Like, it's basically the previous book's storyline continued on but told from another couple's perspective, and it was so good. Like I said, it's tied for my favorite with the third book in the series. I love them so much and they complement each other so well. I love so much. Incredible. I loved this series. Like I said before, I would give the series overall like a 4.5 stars. It was so good. Probably the first two books I'd give a 4, the second two books I'd give a 4.5. So good. Like I said, it's like a circus cult vibe, and it's okay. So that is all for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.